Hey everybody, it's Allie Cox and welcome back to the Farm to Fame podcast. I have another great guest, another day, another guest that I just love and adore. So pleased to welcome Lynn Ducharme to the podcast. Welcome, Lynn.
Thanks, Allie.
Lynn is a friend that I can tell you I met in the most organic of ways. We literally were in a meeting and quickly realized that, let's just be honest, we think we are the two smartest people in the room and connected immediately and had so much chemistry and so much just like-minded things. I was actually, without knowing, validating recommendations she had made in a meeting like 2 hours earlier. And the client was wondering if we had already knew each other and if were talking in the parking lot. So that is how we met, which is just full circle, and I love it. Lynn has an incredible point of view on agriculture and food, and I'm so excited to talk more about it. Lynn came through the HR route, so people route, which is super interesting. She's done quite a bit of work in HR, in recruiting. She is an advisory board member at the Females in Food community, a community that I absolutely adore being part of, and I'm so pleased to be a member. She's also really scratching some entrepreneurial itches right now and doing a lot of really cool things with a lot of folks. So Lynn, welcome. I cannot wait to talk about how people and HR impact our industry so intentionally. So welcome.
Thank you, Allie. I'm so excited to have the discussion because I think HR and marketing are kind of the two underdogs in business that people tend to underestimate, but have such an impact on enterprise value and business outcomes. So no, I'm excited for the discussion.
Okay, let's just start there. Why do you think there is somewhat of an underdog mentality when it comes to business and agriculture?
So you mean underdog mentality in marketing and people?
It's mostly an internal. I think we're really talking about an internal thing right now.
Yes.
Why internally do you think that? Because I feel like I fight that fight all the time. So I want to know your point of view.
I think it goes back to kind of this old school mindset that HR is warm, fuzzy, and marketing is pretty pictures, right? Where you and I know they have a much bigger and longer impact on the business. We're talking strategy, they're talking execution, right? Okay. People guide and dictate strategy, so does marketing. Sales is your execution on that marketing and revenue, right? But marketing is really the groundwork, and it's a longer term play. So are people. People are more nuanced, and that takes longer for you to see an ROI. But I will tell you, I've never seen a business be successful with marginal talent, right? They might be making money, but they're not going to be a huge success without the right people in the right roles. And marketing is the same way. And so I think it goes back to HR and people feels warm and fuzzy, and marketing feels like it's just pretty pictures, when really there's so much more to both of those. Feel free to disagree with me on that, though.
No, I don't. I'm not going to disagree with you, because I honestly a lot of times our clients, they see our numbers and I'm like, how much we cost? I'm like, how much are you paying for like a McKinsey or a consulting? Because that's the kind of value we're looking to bring. It's business transformation. This is not just fully innate. Do we do a lot of sales enablement? Absolutely. We need your sales team to have the right tools. But what are they selling? How are they selling? How is it priced? Where's the opportunity? Where's the white space? What are your competitors doing? What does the consumer actually want? What does a retail partner actually need? There's so many things that come to that, of course, and it's getting more and more nuanced every single day as digital. Okay, so, but why I would love, because I have seen you work your magic, and I would love to know kind of how you decided that the ag and food space was where you wanted to focus, and then how you really kind of leaned into that and where it's going in the future.
Yeah. So I came from a generalist executive search background. And so I actually had a preconceived notion that generalists were superior because you could take bits and pieces of best in class from different industries. And then I joined the food industry exclusively about 8 years ago, and it operates like no other sector. And I'm sure that you appreciate this. It is as fast paced as fashion, but it is as regulated as pharma. But pharma has 10 years to develop and commercialize products, right? We're talking about really fast trends that come and go in the food industry, and you need to figure out how do we accommodate for those trends really quickly. So you need people who are really decisive, excellent ethics and data assessment, but also so because marketing and talent are similar in that way too, that the consumer and the generations want what they want when they want it. And if you're too slow to react to that, you're going to lose talent quickly and you're going to lose consumers. And so I found that the food and beverage industry was so nuanced and so unique that you could take people out of food and place them in other industries and they'd be successful, but you couldn't necessarily do the reverse. So I see people in the industry and be successful if you don't have that background. The trouble in like you can just buy a bunch of steel when it's cheap, right? So I'd say you have to have talent that's both hyper flexible, data oriented, but also
intuitive. Like you're speaking my whole world right now. This is literally like my whole thing right now.
Well, and AI is making it worse. AI is making this harder.
But why is that so hard for people to understand? Like it's a perishable. I grew up in fresh produce. So, I mean, I was like working the shipping docks. Like I understand. Like, why is it so hard for people from the outside to understand that there is actually a lot of nuance that goes into moving a perishable crop? And even if it's beverage, I mean, I'm sorry, like unless it's an aseptic pack and ready to be like frozen for a couple of years, like it's gotta move. I don't understand why there's not more. I don't understand why there's not more like respect for that, number one. And then number two, I think
there is when people get
placing, right, when they learn the hard way, right? But I think that that's also where like as a recruiter, you've really got to like, that's why like these hires, every single one of my clients are like, great, now I've spent a ton of money with Noble West or with you, and we have a great brand. We are exactly who we want to be on the inside and out. Well, now who's going to go like take us to the next level and utilize all these materials? And that's where oftentimes it comes back to talent and the network and understanding the whole, all of the stakeholders, which are very diverse.
Oh, and what's so interesting, you mentioned like frozen. Frozen has fewer concerns maybe on the finished product side of perishability, but they have more nuances when it comes to selling into the retailer, right? Because you have a category that's really crowded and challenging for the buyers. And so from a retail perspective, so like you said, there's so much diversity of stakeholders. There's a really fickle supply chain component. Retailers have razor thin margins. Distributors have razor thin margins. Manufacturers, have so many different cost implications that are variable. So they have to work in a ton of margin to make sure that they're not losing money by making product, right? And so I think that level of complexity is unlike any other industry. We at the firm I was with previously, we were standing up a pharmacy vertical, and I was thinking, this will be very adjacent, super regular. The lead times they have are so different, and the raw material ingredients might expire, but after like 10 years, right? And your competition in the market, if you're a pharmacy, is very different than in food. The barrier to entry is much lower in food. You get taken on by all kinds of brands entering the market every day. And so differentiation is challenging. So talent, in my opinion, in the food and beverage industry is so specialized and nuanced because of how specialized and nuanced the industry is. It really requires that you have an understanding and a deep appreciation for how nuanced it is. And oftentimes I'll see outsiders, or, we're seeing a lot of money move from tech into food and bev because it's a more concrete, historical vertical for them to invest in, as AI is disrupting technology and SaaS so much right now. And they don't appreciate the nuances of food. And so we're seeing quite a few investments not be successful because it's not like any other. They're bringing in automotive CEOs to run these businesses that are implementing Kaizen and Lean Six Sigma. And it's like, this is a co-manufacturer that needs a lot more flexibility.
But
yeah, that's great. They're talking about a protein that you can't automate the carving and production process, right? And so good luck. So no, huge fan of talent from industry simply because it's really easy to underestimate the nuances, and there's nuances across every part of the supply chain, from ag to distribution to manufacturing to end of line distribution to retails. It's all nuanced.
Yeah. Okay, so you're talking about like, I think like I would love for you, you're talking a lot about like the talent, and I think that where I've seen is obviously when you have fresh produce, or you have, like I've had a lot of conversations about whey protein lately, and just like the lack of whey protein, because protein is now, in everything, and things like that. I feel like what I'm hearing you say is like knowing how to quick pivot and call friends for help is what I'm sort of hearing. And I would love to know like what kind of talent and what skills, when you're looking at talent from within, is needed in order to make the businesses thrive. And like, what are those skills, and what do they need to be successful? Because otherwise my marketing strategies aren't going to work, Lynn.
Well, you hit on it perfectly, calling your friends. So in the age of AI, everybody has access to information. And it's how are you applying that information? How much credibility are you giving that information? What I'm really looking for, it's funny because you and I were just talking about this, is people who have maintained those relationships with subject matter experts. So when they're needing, like there are investment decisions that I need to make on a pretty quick timeline, I need to make sure that I've nurtured enough relationships in industry that I can call and validate information that I'm getting, so that I can make sure it's based in subject matter expertise. It's not just based on what's available on the internet, but it's actually based in pragmaticism. And so I'd say the biggest thing I look for in talent right now isn't necessarily going to be intellect. It's going to be social and emotional connectivity, because those are the people that have their pulse on what's going on in the marketplace. They're the people that are able to take quicker action because they have relationships that are the foundation for their, success and understanding of what's going on in the industry. So I'd say people who are very well connected and across functions. It's not just a sales rep selling into operators. It's a sales leader that also understands procurement and that understands, the marketing team's perspective and is really a cross-functional player. So people who stay in their swim lane are never going to be my favorite. I love people who blur lines and have relationships cross-functionally, but I'd say also those people that just have a really strong reputation in relationships across the industry that they can tap into, because it's like you get a bunch of institutional knowledge and not just one human.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. And how do those people, once you find these unicorns and you put them in these wonderful jobs, how then do they work? Like, how should I know that you've done a lot of placing of like sales executives and VP of sales and lots of folks and maybe some CEOs, but really, how do they work well? What should a marketing team look like? And how do you set those folks up once you place them for success in call it the majority of what the ag industry is, which is not publicly traded companies, which are owner operated, small boutique businesses that are probably doing, somebody will fact check me on this, but probably doing anywhere from 15 to $250 million in business. I think that's the backbone of our entire food system here. What do they need in order to be successful? This is not a planted question for all of the friends at home, so that she can say people should buy more marketing. But I'm just curious, if you do own a company, we do have a lot of people who are watching this who own food companies. What do they need to do?
They need to invest, and unfortunately, people don't love that answer. But it depending on what your culture is, right? Those people can't just be set up for success because they have a great background and great business acumen. There also has to be a culture of investment into your business objectives. When you and I first met, we were in a very interesting discussion about re-commercializing. Yeah, where to spend money and how. And their philosophy was, and they had mentioned this to me, which is why I was having the argument with them on this is actually a marketing play. You actually need to do a rebrand because what you're hoping to achieve, a new hire can't just come in and do for you. You really need to reposition your business from a marketing perspective. So you can't just place a head of sales and then all of your problems are fixed, right? You have to invest in a head of sales and all of the marketing engine behind it that confirms you are who this sales leader says you are. Because if your sales leader comes in and has exceptional relationships in industry, but you're presenting online as somebody different than who they say you are, that's going to be a miscommunication and it's going to feel like it's dishonest. So you're immediately putting your head of sales behind the eight ball by not resourcing the marketing side of the equation appropriately. So I'd say, like you said, like solve your commercial problems, you really need to invest in the marketing, which we.
Yeah.
Did it lag?
A little bit. We're going to see how this goes. We might have to do this all over again.
I love it.
But it's really great. But what you're saying is so critical. And so I just do want to, if I can recap just here for a second, I think what you're saying is so essential is that like you are making the big hire. You've decided, you've made the big decision of bringing a big gun, probably flying them in, moving a family. And like, how do you set that person up for success? You cannot expect that one person is going to be able to do anything. And quite frankly, especially if you're hiring a VP of sales, I see this all of the time. That does not mean that they are a brand marketer. That does not mean that they even know how to do a brand refresh. They won't even know how to hold an agency accountable in the right way. So if you do want that very expensive hire to be able to come in and like hit the ground running and leverage their relationships, which they want to do, they need to keep their contacts fresh. Otherwise they lose them. They don't have time for a 6-month rebrand. They want to start selling now as who you're going to be. So that way they are actually getting the price point and the deals they need now in order to sustain long-term growth and not just do like little one-hit favors because my buddy went to a new job. They need to be able to actually show how they're doing that. And so if it's not a clean, tidy brand house with actual materials that are better than what your teenage daughter did on AI at night, which is still really good, like it does definitely need to be kind of thought through. So Lynn, you're so smart. Thank you for being here. And I just love all of our conversations. Thank you for moving so many initiatives forward and really just putting people at the center of like all of like the big goals that you're hoping to accomplish for your clients, which you have an incredible client roster of really dynamic companies all the way from macarons to, which I learned, like we do not call it a macaroon, it is a macaron, all the way through to like big business. So thank you again. And I just always love the conversation. So take care.
Yeah, good to see you, friend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.